God, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing all of us to get together. We are also busy all the time. So thank you for letting us have a day in our calendar that lined up for us to get together and essentially come in here and talk about you. And you know that I say it every time I pray before this. I pray that your Holy Spirit will just dwell in this room, that if there's any conversations we need to have or somebody needs to hear, Lord, that you'll put it on our hearts to have it, that you'll be with the equipment, the camera, the audio, and the whole nine, Lord. So it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Heck yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on the podcast, bro. I think it's really cool that, I think it was 2023 for Tyler too, but that we both had the honor of going on your podcast. Mm-hmm. And now you, Mr. Matt Overton, is on the GodDog podcast.
That's right.
It's good to be on the other side of the mic this time. I tell you what, like doing your own podcast could be, as you know, time consuming.
Yeah.
It could be overwhelming at times. I mean, not just to get the guests, but, you know, to think about how you want the podcast to flow, the conversation. Then you got the editing, you got the audio, you got all the stuff, all the social posts. So it could be, and really it's just outside of me, it's a one-man show for my podcast. We've been doing that for 2.5 years. And so it's a daunting task, man. But for you guys to actually do it yourself, I mean, kudos for taking the step to actually do it, because it was on my heart for a long time to do a podcast. I just was like, man, like, you know, yes, podcast, like the new trendy thing, everyone's doing it, but it was on my heart to share testimony and story and like really get vulnerable and open and talk about just the ugly stuff that most athletes don't talk about, you know? Yeah, we talk about it in small group and men's groups and Bible study, but like outside of that, like people didn't feel like they could really open up and be vulnerable in a public setting on a podcast to share like real raw stuff. And so I wanted to create a safe space for teammates, friends, peers of mine, mentors of mine to do that. And I'm so grateful I did. But I was nervous, like, who's going to listen to the podcast? You know, who's going to take it seriously? And it doesn't matter. I've been doing it for 2.5 years straight now, and I love doing it.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and like, I had both of you guys come on and share your story, and we met through Music Grow Ministry, and the relationships that have been cultivated out of that group has been incredible. And you guys had incredible, you know, with Jason and Jordan, having those mentors. You know, it's kind of the same story with Jordan. Like, it was on his heart to do Music Grow Ministry, and through discernment and prayer and encouragement from Jason, he just did it, and boom. You know, every Wednesday, nice. You know, it's incredible. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Before we jump into it, I'm just going to tell you, Tyler's really good at doing this. Tyler's always really good about giving people their flowers and like compliments. And like, I feel like I got to do that for you. I've told you this before, dude, but like, you're that person in my life that's like, every time you walk in the room on Wednesday, like the whole room lightens up and I'm like, oh man, like Matt's here. Like, you have that presence and that spirit where it's like, it's all good. Now everything's good. Like, I could be having a terrible day, but if I run into you, bro, you put a smile on my face. I think I told you the other day, and if I didn't, I meant to tell you, because it's like every single Wednesday that I'm chilling there in the back and making my coffee, and you walk in, I'm like, from across the room, I'm like, my boy's in here now.
He usually ends with a big hug.
Yeah, every time. Yeah. I love that about you, dude.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. I tell you what, I get so much joy walking into that room every Wednesday morning. And it's not every Wednesday, but there are definitely it's noticeable throughout the week or weeks or months. Like, if I don't go, I feel a void.
Same.
You know, and I think as soon as anybody walks into that room, whether it's your first time or, you know, your 50th time, it's just it's definitely a boost of joy for sure.
How did you end up at Music Grow Ministries?
Well, so Mike Lisenby in our group, he and I played college ball together. Again, I
don't think I knew that. Maybe you told me that on the podcast.
God orchestrated. It's like two guys from Western Washington University in the northwest corner of the country. So when Mike and I played back in 2005, 2006, go Vikes. But I moved to Nashville in 2020 full time. 2017 originally, but my wife and I moved here 2020 full time. And Mike had reached out about around 2022, said, hey man, I'm doing this music thing. And, I saw him on social and Facebook and stuff like that, doing some music stuff and doing some gigs. But he reached out, was like, hey, we're real serious about getting out of Washington. He just got out of law enforcement, going through his thing with that. But he wanted to make the transition to Tennessee, and as a licensed realtor on the side, my little side hustle, he said, hey, can you help us find a place? So long story short, Mike and his family moved out here, out to Dixon. And then, we kind of, once he got out here, I don't think it was Mike initially who mentioned Music Road Ministry, but then I had JD Groover on the podcast, and he's like, hey man, you got to come check out, because I lived like.
How'd you meet JD?
Jacksonville Jaguars, man.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's Duval till he dies.
He is.
Dude,
So
it's so crazy. I mean, I don't want to interrupt. I want you to continue that, but like one of my things on my notes too is like you have so many random ties into country music.
yes,
To not be in country music.
yeah.
I'll get there in a minute. Finish your MRM story, and then I'll
So
ask you
I
that.
was in Jacksonville from 2017 to 2019, and our punter Logan Cook, Mississippi State kid, he got drafted there. So I played with Logan his rookie year, and so JD, I would always see like either Logan or he would like retweet something, or it was always JD or something. And I saw that he had followed me on Twitter, and living in Nashville, so it's a Nashville guy, a Jags fan too. So I just, we just follow each other on socials. But then it was one training camp. I think Cole Swindell, it might have been Luke, Bryan, Cole Swindell, and John Langston on a tour.
Sounds about right.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so JD and John, because JD was working for John as manager at the time, came to one of the practices. And so after practice, got to meet those guys. And then we went to the show that evening and hung out with them. I had known Cole now for quite some time. So it was good to see him, but then, and John as well. And that kind of, we'll circle around about just my random connections to Nashville. But that was my first time meeting JD. And then again, small story, small world situation. JD's wife is from the Seattle area. And when she had moved to Nashville to start the Nash collection thing, I had met her several years ago. Cause again, I was the newbie to town, I had to get a Nash hat cause that was a cool thing to do back in the day.
Yep.
And, we had met at one of her little pop-up shops. I'm like, you're from Seattle? Like, that's so random. I went to Western. So it was like that weird connection. Then find out her and JD were dating. But then long story short, JD came over on the podcast and he mentioned Music Road Ministry. And I'm like, dude, I need something like that in my life so badly. And shoot, it's been about a year and a half now going.
Yeah.
And it's the best.
It's the coolest thing, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I always tell everybody, like I feel like that can be my church, and I'm good.
There's no question. I mean, Jason Cruz talks about it all the time, like how special and unique it is, and I don't think we understand kind of the impact that it's having, especially within your guys' industry.
Yeah.
And it's much needed everywhere, no matter where you're at. But it's grown, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a part of that, and grateful for Jordan. But I got to meet so many of you guys, and I'm like the outlier of the group. Like I'm the non-music guy.
I think it's so cool.
And no, it's very cool. I try to bring some of my buddies that are in town, NFL guys, when they can, to come join in, and I get random people asking all the time about the group, and they have no involvement in sports or music or anything like that. I'm like, dude, just come. It's an open door policy.
Yeah.
Just come as you are.
Yeah. It's cool. There was two guys there that I don't know if you met them last week. They were both named Garrett, or I think they're Garrett, and they were both from Pennsylvania.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Garrett Owens, right? Yeah, I just connected with him because he's a football guy. And again, this is another. It's orchestrated by God. It's not coincidence, but Garrett and Garrett come over and introduce themselves. We're talking. I'm like, you're a PA guy? Yeah. You're thinking about coming to Nashville, and I'm pursuing music, and used to play football. I'm like, where'd you play ball at? I'm a D2 guy. Well, I'm a D2 guy too. So like, don't be ashamed of your D2 school. Like, throw it out there. Like it's how to represent. And he's like, I went there, and then I went to Duquesne. I'm like, Duquesne. My boy Christian Kuntz, the snapper for the Steelers now, is a Duquesne kid. Oh, I know. And like, so then that spirals into, I played in the XFL for a little bit, UFL. I'm like, dude, like, there's a ton of those dudes out here training. So we connected on Instagram, and again, it's just another one of those not coincidence stories that happens right there in that little town hall, you know?
Right.
It never is. And it's that, just on that note, this is funny too. When he came up to me, he was like, yeah, man, I was at this Music Row Connected thing last night. And he was like, this guy came up to me and he was like, this guy was by himself. And he walked over to me and he was like, man, God just put it on my heart to come over here and talk to you and invite you to Music Row Ministries. And I was like, who was it? He was like, this guy named Harrison, do you know him? And I was like, never mind, bro. It all makes perfectly good sense of why somebody randomly had the Holy Spirit tell him to talk to you.
That's Harrison, man.
It's Harrison. Yeah. We should have plugged your pod earlier when we were talking about it. You want to tell everybody the name of your podcast?
Yeah, Stay Ready, the podcast. It's every week. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, but it's a faith-based podcast. I mean, not every conversation is testimonial led or faith. I mean, that's the root of it. Really starting it out, it was like back in 2017, and this kind of goes into my Nashville story. In 2017, I had just moved to Nashville in the off season. Bought a house here. Thought I'd spend the off season in Nashville. It's only 4 hours from Indy. I was with the Colts at the time, and wanted to invest in a property. But then outside of that, I wanted to be kind of in the hustle and bustle of Nashville because, you know, I hadn't spent much time in the city. We'd play the Titans every year. We'd go out to dinner. It seemed like the place was vibing all the time. The weather is definitely better here, you know, during the off season. A lot of guys were coming here to have fun and train. And at the time, I was also pursuing like a internship through CMT or radio and stuff like that. So I had an opportunity with Bobby Bones to kind of do like a little unofficial internship. So
that question was on here too.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's funny because I obviously from MRM heard about you, right, or met you, but then like listened to Tyler's episode. But before that, I was trying to figure out like, dude, I was like, this guy, I feel like I know this guy from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen you on something with Bobby Bones or an interview in studio, or maybe it was something with Lunchbox. And so your country music thing has started way before now. And
it started a long time ago in Indy. Yeah, because I did some radio stuff with WFMS down there, and you know, always been a country fan. And so when I got, you know, in the NFL, you get really cool opportunities to do things, and typically it always is around sports.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was like, you know what? Like, I love football. I love doing it. But whenever I do like an interview or jump on a sports, you know, show, like I always kind of felt uncomfortable talking about football, especially if it was in season. You know, like I don't want to sit here like and try to critique another team or critique a teammate or like I'm like, those are my teammates, those are my peers. Like, who am I? I'm the long snapper, dog. Like, let's keep it real. Like, who am I to say like, oh, you know, like this quarterback had a bad game. So I always felt uncomfortable going on those shows. I still did them, but I always had the mindset of like, all right, just like dumb it down. Like, don't get too like deep in the weeds of like critique and like, you know, if our team's having a bad season or we just lost a game, like just be mindful of what you say. And so I had done a ton of stuff like country radio related, and WFMS kind of had me on several times to do like just sit-ins and whatnot. And so, you know, they were great to me, and I got to do the CMAs. The ACMs. I went to the ACMs with them in Vegas one year
cool.
to do Radio Row. And I got to sit in on all those interviews from all the big dogs. Got to meet a ton of people. And so that was kind of my first draw to like, hey, like I would love to kind of segue this whole NFL thing into like country music, you know, and I think there's a lot of parallels between the artist and the athlete, you know, kind of the same dreams, same vision, same goals, same like setbacks, same hardships, all the adversity, you know, and so it's two different things, but very similar paths. And then not to mention a lot of the country guys, they're all like ex-players.
Yeah.
Dude, like I always wanted to be a, you know, Atlanta Falcon. Like, you know, what is it like playing the NFL? And so like, I think those were like a lot of similar things that we had in common. And so it was almost like you always kind of hear like, oh, the athlete always wants to be the guy on stage, and then the guy on stage is like, oh, what is like running out of the tunnel on Sundays? So there's those two things, and so we kind of, I don't want to use the word envy, but it's almost like we both are at the heights of what we're doing, but we envy each other's careers.
Well, I think it's easy to see both sides when it's like it's not the same job, but in terms of where it sits, it's like it's the big leagues.
It is.
It's the same dream. It's like you might be 15 with a guitar being like, man, I really want to make it to radio. Or you might be 15 on the field being like, I got to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's the same, it's freaking stupid hard, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool for people can look at both of those the same way and be like, that's the dream everyone has, to be a professional something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty sick.
And there's a ton of setbacks on the road that it takes to get there, and the adversity that you face and the temptations you face and all that kind of stuff. So going back to, Nashville, like Bobby's show. So I got introduced to Bobby before Bobby really kind of came to Nashville. So he was in Austin at the time. And I didn't know Bobby because, at the time he wasn't I don't think he was like nationally syndicated. He was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but he came to Nashville to kind of take over. And so I had a friend, AC Calhoun, up in Indy, who was one of the news anchors, sports anchor guys. He's like, dude, you gotta. My buddy Andy Roderick, he's best buds with this guy Bobby Bones. He's just got his new country show going on in Nashville. You got to meet this guy. So I had a bye week, and I came down to Nashville, and I went and met Bobby and the guys, and was on the show for a little bit. And that was my first. It was probably within the first 6 or 8 months that Bobby and the Bobby Bones show was here in Nashville. So I got in pretty early with those guys and kind of stayed in connection with them. And, so that was probably like 2013, 2014 when I first met those guys. And then, fast forward to 2017, I was looking for an off season, internship. And I reached out to Bobby about, what would be a good fit for me. And I applied for like CMT. I thought it would be cool, but like CMT is like super corporate.
It was very corporate.
And it was like, 60 hours a week. It's not paid. I'm like, dude, this is my off season. I'm not trying to go into like a 9-to-5 gig right here. But it was very like, it was very demanding. The CMT thing was very demanding. It was like every single day, like really unknown hours. It could be at least 40. I'm like, I don't know if that's really for me.
Yeah, and then if you're working with Cody Allen, you're up at 2 a.m.
Yeah, so
no for me, dog.
Yeah, so Bobby was like, man, just come over and talk to me, man. And so I went over, just had a casual conversation. I was, hey, I'm just looking to like this radio thing. I really have an interest in this, especially from the country music angle, and I don't want to be so involved in sports. And he's like, dude, just come in whenever you want, sit in the box and just listen. And so I would wake up at 5 a.m., get in there around 5:30. They go live at like typically around 6 o'clock. And I would just sit there, take notes. And I did that for probably, 2 months. And then over time, like Bobby would like text me and be like, hey, on Sunday night, hey, pitch us some ideas for this week, like for like little segments. So I did that. I don't even know if he used any of the things, but I got to hang out with Ray outside of the show quite a bit. We had a little too much fun on Sunday fun days.
Y'all could be very good friends.
Yeah, we had a good time. Him and his wife Laura, great, and Lunchbox and Eddie and those guys, but over time, Bobby just kind of got me slowly involved in other things and doing little bits and bringing me on the air and doing like him tasing me and doing stuff like just random stuff. Yeah, he's like, hey, you want to get tased? I'm like, well, I guess. He did it twice to me. And,
really?
Yeah. And
did it like really suck?
Well, I had a sweatshirt on, and he got me like right under like kind of the under the armpit area, and it's that's the tender area, what I'm saying? He got me pretty good, and then he did it again. He's like, I didn't get you good, but he started doing things like that. It was just fun. It was fun to be in a different just a different environment where it's not all like Bobby does a lot of sports stuff, but it's not the main thing, and he has fun with it. But then I got to just all the interviews. I got to see how he interviews Luke Bryan, how he interviews, I mean, you name it, Garth Brooks.
Yeah,
I mean, they just
sure.
come in all the time. Everybody's coming in. And so it was just cool. And it was a kind of little thing. But at the time, this kind of goes into my testimony for sure. So coming to Nashville 2017, bought a house, moved in here, thought it was going to be the greatest time ever. I partied probably a little too much. I was like chasing unicorns. I was down at, Demumbrian at Tin Roof like all the time. And we
probably saw you there.
I mean, it was like, it was one of those things like, it's a Wednesday night, typically in your guys' industry, it's like, all right, the guys are home for a few days.
That's like Friday night.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, like industry night or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, I had nothing holding me back. I was single and I thought I had, this vision of what I was trying to chase, success and all this kind of stuff. So, and then being buddies with like, Chase Rice, and we'd go down to Tin Roof and it was cool that like it was just him and Cole Swindell and John Langston and random other big names, and they're not getting bombarded by, all these people. It's just a random, like
nice
we're just sitting there having
yeah.
drinks, and then, but that over time, that just, it compounded over and over and over and over again. Like I mentioned, Sunday fun days. Like I was like, all right, I don't typically drink on Sunday, but it's cool. I'll go out at 10 a.m., meet up with a group at 11, start drinking. I'll be home by 5. I'll get, full night's rest, and I'll be good for Monday. But I did that over and over and over again. And that's pretty unusual for me. That's not, I haven't been a big drinker. I kind of felt like 2017, I fell back into like my college ways a little bit. And 2017, like I wasn't training as hard and I wasn't taking football as seriously. Cause again, I'm now, 5 years in the league. I feel like I got the second contract. I felt like I was more stable, had some money in my pocket. I solidified myself in the league. And, I spent the whole offseason here in 2017. I get back to go report to the Colts. Like 3 weeks later, I get just cut out of nowhere. And so that was kind of like the beginning of like this downhill spiral for me. And I'm trying to get back to the stay ready thing. So, I go from having a great offseason in Nashville, go back to Indy, get cut. I mean, I still had 2 more years left on my contract in Indy. I get cut before the draft.
How does that work with the contract? Like,
there's no guarantee.
There's just like fine print that's like at any time we can terminate.
Do they have to pay you out for that? If you had 2 years left?
I got my signing bonus. I signed a 4-year deal. The 2 years before that, got a signing bonus with that. But outside of that, like if there's no signing bonus, they don't owe you nothing. And so that sideswiped me. So it kind of that's what it just was like. God showed me, hey, you need to change your ways a little bit here. And it took a few days for me to kind of get that fire back. Like I was sulking. I was, why am I getting cut? Why is this happening kind of thing? But it took a few days for me to get back into the swing of things, like get back into training and take it seriously. But, this is where like the stay ready, like hashtag came into play. And, I'd post my training videos. I had some teams at the time, calling and showing interest. And for me, it was just, I had this like long list, out of, obviously take the Colts out. So 31 more teams,
Yeah.
where would I want to be? And I, at the time, like I had the Packers calling me. I had other teams, Atlanta, Detroit. I had these teams that were calling me. And of course I was like, well, I definitely want to go to Green Bay. That's, Aaron Rodgers, those boys are rolling every year. And, so on my training videos, I'll just be like hashtag stay ready. So it was like for me, like that stay, I don't know where it came from. I just started using it. But it was always and only based around like staying ready for that football opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. It was like just like stay ready with training. Like you need to be at your best when that phone call does come. Hopefully it does come. So I kind of just used that stay ready mindset for a while. And, fortunately I got, when it came down to getting picked up, I got picked up by Jacksonville, and the worst team in the league by far. Again, this is how God works in mysterious ways. So my girlfriend and I, who's now my wife, I had just broke up with her. I get signed to the worst team in the league. I go to Jacksonville, and it was weird because Jacksonville had brought me out earlier in the year. I didn't sign, but then an injury happened, and they signed me right before the season. So I'm like, my agent called. I was excited for the call. Like, all right, who's calling now? Oh, well, Jacksonville wants you back. I'm like, oh man, Jacksonville again. Gosh dang. All right, so let's go to Jacksonville. Go to there. It was one of those, you get uncomfortable going to a new locker room. It's uncomfortable. I don't know much of the city. Every time I play in Jacksonville, it's a half empty stadium. It's the team has just been struggling for years on end.
Long time.
It's hot, dude, in Jacksonville. It's like, dude, this place it's kind of grimy. If you're not at the beach, it's kind of grimy. And so fortunately for me, I had a nice little condo out in Ponte Vedra, which is beautiful. And but that was my season where God was just saying to me hey, if you really want this football thing, I'm going to take you somewhere where you don't want to go. So he took me to Jacksonville, Florida. And
why do you think he did that?
Well, because in Indy it was good, right? We had a good team. I had my social influence. I had status in the city. I had my house. I was there. I was comfortable. And so, God took me to the most uncomfortable place in the league. Not a good team, toxic culture. The locker room was in shambles. I don't have family close. It's the furthest away from my family. My family's all West Coast. And
so do you feel like he was kind of isolating you?
100%. So it was, and then again, my girlfriend and I had just broken up, and it was weird because she was a huge supporter for me, right? And the day I got cut, she was one of the first people that called to check in on me. But then when I signed, I never heard from her. I never heard from her hey, good luck in Jacksonville. So that was always in the back of my mind, hey man, how come Bree hasn't been following up and reaching out and whatnot? So that was kind of always on my heart, but she wasn't really on my heart at the time. And then, so, the season goes on. And again, this is God's crazy way of working things out. So I make the team, we get there, we have an unbelievable season. We go from 2-14 to the AFC Championship the next year, the year that I'm there. Blake Bortles is balling. Earlier on in the season, they're they need to trade Blake. He stinks, this, that, and the other. Well, Blake has a breakout year. We had Calais Campbell. We had Jalen Ramsey. We had all these dogs. We had, Leonard Fournette. We just had a team that was just full of dogs. But early on, like I said, when I got in the locker room, there was fights. It was just toxic, man. It was just that there had never been because I come from the Colts, a very traditional, the standard is high, the ownership, the management, it's a well-oiled, coming off the most winningest decade of any team, even more than the Patriots when Peyton Manning, I got there right as Peyton Manning left. So I'm in the league with a team that there is culture, there is an expectation to win, and then I go to the worst team in the league. It's the complete opposite. It's
like the longest yard.
It is.
You've said that a few times on, I think, the episode I was on with you here, and I've heard you say it at MRM, but what is a lot? I think I have it in my notes. You've said the locker room can be a very dark place.
Yeah.
And I don't think people outside of that world, I would never think that at all. So what does that look like?
Well, to put it in terms for you guys, just imagine taking a green room.
Yeah.
Before a show, putting 90 dudes in there from all walks of life. Out of 90, you may have 5 believers in there.
Yeah.
The other 85 they're 21 years old. Some of them they're all first round draft picks. They got money in the bank. They come from nothing. Their culture is completely different. It's dude, you just get all walks of life thrown into a box, but you spend so much time together. So it's almost like you guys, before the show, before you go on stage, you're just partying in that box all the time. And us in that locker room, it's we're in that locker room outside of meetings, outside of the practice and the games, we're in that locker room all the time. So you get to kind of observe and watch how people move and how they interact. And you got that group in the corner who's cliquey, and they got the gangster rap going. They got all the lockers that you walk around and you see all right, who's the dirty guys, who's the clean guys. And it's like, I don't ever want to be next to a locker mate who's got a dirty locker, right? I mean, like their clothes are just stacked up there, all dirty laundry, out on the floor. They got 15 pairs of cleats all over the place. Like their house is in shambles, and you like to keep your stuff tidy. So it's like you get so many people in a small confined area, and you get to kind of see how do the leaders lead the room. What are the veterans doing? Like it's almost like being in a prison yard. It's like, hey, like who is the ringleader here? Mm-hmm. And Jacksonville didn't have that. Like Calais Campbell had just got there. And again, this guy is, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but like we just got that guy. Jalen Ramsey was a young guy.
He's from here.
Nashville guy, just like maybe, second, third year in the league. Blake Bortles is coming off of a tough year before. So he's, even though he's like the starting quarterback, like I don't feel like he really felt like he could be the guy to like stand up and like keep guys in check. And again, that goes, the whole thing is like, people like to feel like their performance dictates how they walk and act and stuff like that. So if you have a bad game, it's like, oh man, like I can't speak up today because I just played like crap on Sunday. So I feel like guys walk around with that a lot. But yeah, being in a locker room, there's a lot of lost souls in there. I mean, there's no accountability, there's no faith. Maybe the team doesn't even have like full-time pastoral or minister help. Fortunately for us, we had an ex-player who was played at Notre Dame, played on the Jags for a little bit, but he was our full-time like pastor, but he wasn't always around. And then you'd always notice when the team pastor walks in the locker rooms, like all the iPhones, they go down. The iPads, it's like, what are you looking on what are you scrolling on, dog? Like it. So yeah, it's just it took me a while to realize that at the locker room, it's a lot of lost souls, and I was one of those lost souls at one point. I believed in God, but I didn't walk with the Lord in the locker room. I was still the single young guy running in those groups on the weekends or our time off. I was going out as much as I possibly could. I was drinking way too much. I was enjoying being an NFL player. Living in sin was fun. It was. And you can't tell me any differently.
Yeah, no,
it is, man.
It's careless.
It's super fun until you have a convicted spirit that knows. But when you don't,
yeah. And it took me a long time to feel that conviction. And there would be little moments throughout my life that I can look back on college, go into the NFL. Like there was moments, but I would just shake it off and move on to the next thing, But it was Jacksonville. My time in Jacksonville was really that time, like you said, isolated. Like God definitely isolated me in that moment, in that season where, I lived by myself too. I had no roommate or anything like that. So like I spent so much time on the Lord. I was so like I beforehand, like as practice was done, I would shower, I would jet out and go home. I'd go fishing. I would go barbecue, hang with some friends, whatever. In Jacksonville, like I found myself like lingering around the locker room a little longer, like, dude, I really don't want to go home because like I'm going home to nothing. I kind of want to bro out a little bit longer and fellowship more or whatever. And so I spent a lot of time with the Lord that season. And that's when, my wife, my ex-girlfriend at the time, she came back onto my heart and I started praying over her. And at the time she was, in a new relationship and that crushed me. So I was like, I was really like with the Lord all the time, praying about her. Football was like it was weird. Like football was an afterthought, like I wasn't like stressed. I wasn't like, I was having fun doing it again, which was the blessing in it. I felt no pressure to constantly like perform and seek validation from coaches and all that kind of stuff. And I just felt like I had one of my best seasons ever in 2017. And it was because of the external influence that, God had external and internal influence that God had in my life that year. And then, also like my wife, Bree, was taking up so much of my capacity in my mind because I was thinking about her all the time. Like, dude, how can I get this girl back? And, it was just a while. I mean, in that season, like it led me to like growing in my faith tremendously. We had a great, like I said, we went from 2-14 to the best defense in the league. We only lost like 4 or 5 games that year. We lose to the Patriots on the road in the AFC Championship. And it was just an incredible season, and it brought Bree back into my life, and we kind of rekindled that relationship. But and now we're married with 2 kids, and so it's like but the stay ready thing, like go back to that. The whole at the time it was just like hashtag stay ready for the next workout, the next time a team calls. But then as time went on, and I went from different team to different team to different team, the next 5 or 6 years, like stay ready was so much more than that. And it was like, man, like God has revealed this whole stay ready thing. It's like, what does it really mean? And it's funny because Kevin Queen over at Crosspoint, he just texted me this morning talking about Passover and how like the disciples were like, they were staying ready for whatever was about to happen. They had no idea. And so the stay ready thing like turned into this like just kind of this biblical faith-based like mindset of like, man, like, yeah, God wants the good things, stay ready for the good things, but like, how do you stay ready for the bad things?
Yeah.
How do you stay ready for the adversity? How do you stay ready for when that team cuts you? How do you stay ready for an injury? How do you stay ready when you don't get that cut? How do you how are you going to respond in the midst of adversity? And so that's where stay ready came from me is the idea of like, all right, I have this brand, I have this idea. I really want to do a podcast, and I really want to keep the root of it faith-based and testimonial and create a safe, comfortable environment for guys to come share something maybe they've never shared before. And it's turned into that.
Yeah, I mean, I did.
Yeah.
When I went on there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why it's been so cool with the podcast, but also getting connected with Music Road Ministry, being able to meet so many of you guys and girls. Like, it's been so cool to hear the story of the artist and draw the parallels between the athlete and how, like, yes, 2 different goals, but very, very similar paths.
Yeah. Well, he's talked about it on one of our episodes. We've had a few guys, almost everyone who's come on here has played football at some point, whether it was high school or early college, like Nick or whatever. And who was you talking to? Maybe you were talking with Nick about it. But it seems like there's a lot of artists here that were athletes.
Well, that's how I got connected with Chase.
Yeah.
Yes, and John too.
And John, yeah. Like in Indy, so Chase played at North Carolina.
Here if you want one.
Oh, thank you. We'll get into that.
Okay.
Have a little communion.
Shout out, yeah. Tucker Carlson, God bless you. No, so like in Indy, like Chase had played at North Carolina, and on our staff, there was several coaches on the Colts staff that were at North Carolina. One being Chuck Pagano, who was our head coach, but coached Chase at North Carolina. And it was random. Like, he was coming into town one random night. I didn't know him at all, but I heard people talking about it, and I thought that'd be cool. So, I go to the show, meet Chase, and the instant connection was football and the connections of the coaches. Oh. And so that's kind of where we start our relationship. Not to mention his tour manager, John Lassard. He was a huge Patriots fan. So he was like always chirping in our ear about, oh, dude, the Colts are going to smack you this year. So they would always come into town when the Patriots would play, and the game would always be like a Sunday night or Monday night game. It was always a primetime game. And then John would always show up to the games, when we were in New England. And so it was just a cool relationship that we had, and it evolved over the years. But it was football that, connected us.
It seems like you've had so many moments like that where it's been like, oh, so-and-so, it's from blah, 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 like me too. Like when I was on your show, you were talking about, I don't want to butcher this, but you'll know what I'm talking about, and you can correct me, but you sent your tapes in to someone, a coach, and that was the same coach that coached your grandfather or something?
Yeah.
Dude, that's it's like your whole life has been that way.
Yeah.
Oh, so-and-so, that was my coach too. Oh, you played with him? Me too.
Yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, so when I was like a struggling free agent player, like I had no opportunities. This new league, the United Football League, had started up. And so like this is the power of social media, and this is the power of, just God divine moments. It's not coincidence. But long story short, I get a random Facebook message one Sunday by a player, the punter that was on this UFL team, the Florida Tuskers. And at the time, dude, I was scratching and clawing to get in this league. Like, hey, the NFL is not calling. I have to get in this league to play. And I get the message from him. He says, here's my coach's cell phone number. I called this coach. Hey, Al Roberts, this is Matt Overton. You don't know me, but I'm a long snapper. Heard your guys is hurt. I want to send my film to you. All right, cool. Send it over. Well, we go back and forth a few times, and I just happened to go on the website and just look at the bio, like at least get to know this coach a little bit. Well, it says he played at University of Puget Sound back in 71 through 74. I'm like, what? That's where my grandfather was a head coach at. So the next time I talked to Al Roberts, I'm like, hey, very random, but do you know who Paul Walroff is? He's like, man, I haven't heard that name in 40 years. I was like, well, that's my grandfather. And then he just went on this like incredible story on how my grandfather recruited him out of the University of Washington when he wasn't getting enough playing time, and how he gave him the opportunity at UPS. And but anyway, that was like another moment where it's like, God, what do you like?
So did you get the job?
I got the job.
I was about to say.
Yeah, no, I got the job, but it was like I got to play for a guy who played under my grandfather, who was my hero and mentor. And this is like,
that's insane.
God, you're good. Yeah. But yeah, it is.
Your whole life has been like that. It seems like
it has. But this city too. I mean, it's like, and I was listening to your episode with Josh Phillips because he came in and he didn't particularly share his testimony within, but the coach did, right? He came in as a guest speaker.
Yeah.
And kind of shared his connection with Josh and the whole text, through like,
right.
and fighting for his sobriety and all that kind of stuff. But, that was a great story and testimony. But then I listened to the episode with Josh Phillips, but you guys were talking about, just Nashville, like, just what it draws us all in for different reasons. And this city, it's one of two things. I mean, it's a city of opportunity, and you can either thrive and find, certain things to achieve and attain, but at what cost, and it's like, you can go down the road of like, hey, I'm out and about all the time, drinking, socializing, having fun, trying to rub shoulders with people that can possibly help me or connect me with somebody. And, I was that. And I heard you guys talk about it on the podcast where it's like, dude, it could suck you dry. It can just chew you up and spit you out. And I was that guy. Like, even though I was into music, but I was always out. I was always tempted to go out. And I fell to that temptation all the time. And this city is really a small city. There are so many people here that are coming every single year to move here for different reasons. But it's all like the same. Like I'm from California. Like everybody, moves to LA, or, everyone goes to New York to pursue something big. But this city in particular, like it's an incredible city for a lot of different reasons. But it is small, man. It really, like, it's a small town vibe, and we all have crossed paths some way or some form or some shape over the course of our lives, and it is pretty strange at times when you just like Mike Lisenby moving here from Washington, and we're in the same
right.
Bible.
So wild.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, man.
I told Cindy the same thing last night when we got off the plane. We called an Uber to go home. And so we walked over to like the ride share part or whatever, and there was just guitars on backs everywhere for people who weren't from here. And it was weird because like I don't see that. We're just here and we see it. And I was just sitting there looking around, and I told her, I was like, a whole bunch of dreamers right there that are here for the weekend.
But that once was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still is.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, that is the whole city. And like, you're right about it sucking you in. Even like I said, we were in North End. We were talking to one of the guys, and he was like, oh man, like, y'all are from Nashville. I've been to Nashville a few times. I love it down there. And he was like, so weird though. Like, you can just drink at 8:30 in the morning. And I was like, man, like, it's just, when you hear someone from Boston saying that, it's like, but it's normal. They're being like, it's so crazy. You can drink wherever, whenever you want to. And I'm like, yeah, it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good, dude.
Not good.
But it is the city's nuts.
Well, before we go into any further.
We'll partake. We spent like 45 minutes of my episode talking about sin on your show. Somebody listened to my parents or my cousin or Sid or I don't know who listened to my episode, and they were like, y'all spent like 30 minutes talking about Zen. We had to just skip through it.
Yeah, that was probably early on in my Zen addiction days. And I'm not saying it has gotten any better since then, but I'm not as like enamored by it anymore. I think it was like, so again, I've never really been, outside of like being addicted to like daydreaming and always trying to work hard.
I've never heard that before.
Me either.
But I like that because I feel like I can relate.
Dude, I daydream all
Me too.
the time. Like I am such a dreamer. Like I was in church yesterday and told my wife afterwards, like in the sermon was kind of about, it's, a series of marked, like, where does joy come from? And,
It was great yesterday.
it was really good. And I just was like, all right, I just came off of my first season of high school coaching at Page High School as a volunteer. And it just kind of sparked something in me to start dreaming about, all right, well, how can I make a bigger impact on these kids' lives? And it led to me thinking about like, all right, let's start like a small Bible group every week, and let's start this training thing. And like, so when my mind gets spiraling on like ideas and like big, bold things, like, dude, I'm addicted to daydreaming and dreaming big and being bold. And there's something to it, man. There's really, there's a lot of dreamers. Everyone dreams, but no one really executes or takes themselves seriously when it comes to chasing that dream. And for me, I just, I think we're all programmed where we have these big dreams and goals, but we have something in us that actually pushes us off the ledge to go after it. I think a lot of people are hesitant to even, or they don't believe in themselves to do it. And but we have the faith where we take the first step, and it leads to incredible things.
I love that. I'm going to start telling people that. I'm addicted to daydreaming. I love that.
But back to Zins, what we're at. No, this is, I've heard Tucker Carlson talk about his own little brand. But it's just like, dude, it's my little vice now. And my wife hates it. But I guess there's better things to do.
There's worse things to do too.
Yeah.
I can assure you.
Like so this. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I used to be a big red man guy back in the day, and I mean that's not as aggressive as you country boys, because I'm just a
red man's pretty. It's up there, dude.
Yeah, but it's not like you don't get like the buzz of like the.
It's pretty cool though, your long snapper up there just
that's a red man
chewing on a big old
dude.
Piece
it was
of red man.
Like back in high school, man, because I in California, and it's fun being around like true country boys like you guys. And in California, like we, growing up in the Central Valley, it's all ag land. So alfalfa, almonds, tomatoes, like, so I grew up with a lot of guys who, their family had a ranch and they had, an orchard, they had whatever. And so we had the ag science program in high school, and that's why I went to school. I mean, I was zoned to go to school there. I was going to be a Bulldog regardless, but I went into the ag science program with the intent of studying something within that agricultural thing. And I can't even remember what I focused on, but it was so cool. Like in the back of the school, all the ag kids would park, so they got their lifted F-150, they got their jacked up Bronco, they got the Silverado back there. So like if you were an ag kid, you'd always park in the back. And then, they had the Skull, they had the Grizz, they had the Copenhagen. They would, they would always, they would take the lid and take the seal off the Copenhagen.
You can pop it out.
Yeah, you can pop it out, but that would be like your badge of honor. Like you'd put in your backpack and you'd have like a stack of 50 of them. And that was kind of like it. I'm real. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a poser, And I never dipped in high school outside of Redman. I remember I tried for the first time. I'll never forget. I was like a freshman or sophomore watching a varsity game, and we're in the end zone hanging out. And one of my buddies handed me over some like Copenhagen snuff or something. Threw that thing in, like I couldn't keep it packed. It was just all in my mouth. Yeah. Like I swallowed some of it. I'm like, dude, I threw up, and I never went back to it.
Won't do that again.
We don't need to get it on a tangent on nicotine. But this is a nice change up.
Yeah, it's not bad.
You get it online, or can you get it in store?
I got it online, but I was like, I get very like when I'm on something, I'm on it.
Yeah.
And so when that came out, I was like, I gotta have it.
Well, when you came on the podcast, you were like adamant about like I can't be on Zen anymore. Dude, was that you or Brian?
That was probably Brian.
Brian told me.
Yeah.
Brian told me.
Because he gets like crazy anxiety.
He said he felt more anxious.
Well, no, it was me too. I told you the same thing. I didn't quit though.
Yeah.
Which is not good. That's a typical story of me is it makes me anxious. I still do it.
Yeah.
They do make me anxious. Like this makes me way more anxious than like when I used to just dip. And I think it's just because I'm
I agree.
Overstimulated or something?
Probably too much nicotine.
Dude,
and it's
there's
like,
way more nicotine in Zen than there is in this.
For sure. And it doesn't help that I'm like, I'll crush a medium coffee. I haven't eaten today.
Yeah.
I've had a sip of water
So
today.
you're jacked up.
I'm going to crush that coffee. I'll put 2 of those in, and it's like, I'm just going to be, I think it's just probably too much.
Well,
but
I'm to the point, dude. I started with 3s, and it was 1 3 at a time. And then, it gets to 2 3s at a time. Then once you're at 2 3s, like, well, all right, well, I need to go up to 6 now because I'm not going to spend I would rather just get my 6s and not the 3s. And then started with 1 6, then 2 6s. Now I'm at minimum 3 6s at a time.
oh my gosh.
And then,
can't do that.
And then probably 20 minutes into the 18, I'm throwing another 6er in there. So I got 4 in the upper deck just chilling. And I'm just like,
that's a lot, bro.
And yeah, it's a weird.
That is a lot.
And I try to justify it with science with my wife. Like, hey, yeah, but the science.
Yeah, the science, the Huberman lab told me.
The science says that
It's going to be really good for me when I'm 90 and I don't have Alzheimer's.
So,
Actually, that actually is true.
It has
though.
cognitive-
There is some truth behind the science
Cognitive
where
gain.
Cognitive benefits.
It helps early onset dementia.
I don't know if it's, I don't know what the limit is of like you can just do 1 versus you need 24 milligrams at a time.
400 milligrams.
Yeah.
I did end up stopping Zens after that though, and I went to Velo.
Okay.
And then I went
Velos aren't as bad.
I went to Velo 7s, so I was doing 2 7s. These are at least back to 6s, but
Yeah, I did the ons for a little bit, but the pillows were too small.
yeah.
I've tried the other one, Zone or whatever, and too big.
Yeah, no, dude, it's so stupid.
I don't like flavor, so like that's why Zen. I do like the chills and the smooths.
I like the smooth.
But they're hard to find, man. They're little. Bless you.
Bless you.
Those are
Golly,
unicorns,
bro.
man.
Yeah.
So, but in California, they can't sell flavored nicotine.
Right.
So that's what got me on the chills and the smooths.
Very interesting.
But we can move on from nicotine.
Dude, I had so not to make this about me by any means, but I had a flashback when you were talking about the locker room earlier. Mm-hmm. And so I played high school football with Tyreek Hill. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, we were 6A Coffee High.
So that's
You
the
can
biggest division, 6A.
So
I think they've even went up to like 7A
We-
now.
we
But
have
it was like
7A.
we were 5A, which was huge, and then I think they even like my senior year we were like 6A.
Yeah,
but
6A is the biggest out here.
it's huge. I mean, there were
Really?
so many kids. Like, I mean, I was like $140 then. I'm 220 now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different, but I remember like I hit puberty late. I was scrawny. I actually kicked. And I don't tell people this a lot because anytime football comes up and people start talking about kickers, they're just like, oh, like the kicker. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to bring this up. But I actually went to a bunch of one-on-one kicking camps and Coles and stuff. And because I played soccer my whole life, I was
I didn't know that
way
either.
more of a stud. I mean, I probably could have played college. I know I could have played college ball for soccer, but I chose to join a fraternity instead. But all that to say, I was a kicker, and I was pretty good. But I remember our locker rooms were so big, dude. Like, we had the senior locker room, and then everybody else was down the hall, dude.
Yeah.
And it was like you didn't want to walk out into the hallway by yourself. Because if you did, bro, they would drag your little butt into the senior locker room.
Oh, and haze you.
Oh, bro, it was so bad.
Dude, we had that time. Yeah,
Did they do that in the NFL at all?
Nah,
Probably not.
there's like I just
I
remember
mean, that's grown men at that point.
Yeah, like literally.
Dude, I remember, man, being like a sophomore because I was always a good player in high school. I only played varsity 2 years, but in California we had a freshman team, JV team, and then the varsity team was made up of juniors and seniors. And I was always the stud on every team. One of the studs.
Were you a big kid?
No, not really. I mean, average size. 5'10", 220-ish. At the time, and
That's pretty big, 220.
yeah, I feel like that's pretty. I mean,
I
nowadays,
can't even
like,
imagine being
dude,
5'10". You know what I mean?
these kids nowadays, bro, like on our school, we unfortunately just lost the state championship last Friday. But dude, I mean, it's pretty typical that teams are, these guys on the front line, they're going to be 6'3", 250.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Some of the quarterbacks are 6'6", but anyway, like I remember, dude, and they're good boys, but they would the senior or at the time probably the junior O lineman. I'm not going to name names, but they would drag me in there and like just like beat up on me. Not like maliciously, but like they would scare the hell out of me.
Dude, they would, yeah.
And I don't know.
Sheer panic.
I don't know if it was like their way of saying like, all right, you eventually one day you'll be with us kind of thing, or like if they truly didn't like me. I don't know. I took it as if they hated me. So like,
yeah.
at school, I'd make sure I'd walk away. I wouldn't go to senior court because I didn't want to get jumped in senior, whatever the case would be. But the hazing thing, man, like I think it was a big thing back in the day before social media.
Definitely,
they wouldn't get away with that crap now, bro.
No,
I mean,
too many people.
Yeah,
with phones
I mean, and something I think it's all in fun, but obviously you've heard of the horror stories like the Duke players and.
Yeah,
you know, the schools that had some bad stuff going on with other, like not just football, but like lacrosse and soccer and whatever, and or girls get, you know, they get raped and like these crazy sad stories. And I think like that all stuff, and I think a lot of that stems at like there's partying going on, and then the young guy walks into the party, and that's kind of where all right, it's initiation time kind of, and that's where like things go overboard. Like within a confined locker room, I mean, I feel like there's definitely bullying that goes on. Now within the NFL, it's pretty common for like the coaches to ride the rookies pretty hard, and our hazing nowadays is typically like, all right, we have the rookie show. You know, the rookie show's on this date. Like, be prepared. You got to skit. You got to sing. You got to come up with something. And if we don't clap and applaud your performance, then we're gonna boo you. You're gonna come up on stage the next day, and you're gonna have to keep doing this until we approve that. Yeah. Either put the effort into it and buy into it, and just make fun of yourself while you're up there, like have fun with it, or you know whatever. But I remember like my rookie year in Indy, we had the singing thing, and you didn't know when you get called up. So we'd be in a team meeting, typically during training camp, and then somebody would start clapping. Then the whole crowd would start clapping. All right, then somebody stands up. All right, so and so get up there, and and then guys will get up there and just freeze like and it's like, dude, just pick the easiest song that you can sing Happy Birthday, but go up there and sing it right, make a fool of yourself, and have fun with it. Just be a clown up there, and you're done. Then some guys, you'll get the hard guys up there, like, nah, I ain't singing. Nah, I'm good. Okay, we'll see how this goes. And then you'll get somebody that goes up there and they'll do a very simple song, like Jingle Bells, and they'll screw it up, boo, and they'll start throwing stuff at them. All right, get down, you know, like, and then they'll go up there again. But I remember mine. So like, I was an older rookie, so I was 26 as a rookie. It took me 6 years after college to make my first roster. So it was I kind of fell out of like, all right, this is the rookie class. You know, they're all 21, 22 years old. And I was kind of the outlier, like, oh, Overton's a little older, more mature, but he's still, like, I think people forgot that I was a rookie because, you know, I was an older guy. But I didn't get called up all through training camp. Like, yes, I didn't call it. But I was ready because I did it in college.
Because he stays ready.
I had Sublime Santeria, like, on deck. I was ready to rock and roll. Like, that was my song. That's my karaoke go-to. Like, I could wing it. I could do it. I'll have fun with it. Most people know that song for the most part. Yeah. And so I didn't get called out. But then we had our team picture, which was like halfway through the season. So team picture, we're out there. We got the grandstand up. Everyone's got their uniform on. And we're sitting around for our team owner, Jim Mercer, to get there. He was like, 45 minutes late. So we're just, everyone just kind of sitting around, getting bored. And then all of a sudden I heard... And then everybody starts clapping. And this is with the front office. Like, usually it's just like the coaches, but this is like front office, management, GM. Jim Irsay's daughter's there. You got media there because they're taking the pictures. You got, PR team there. And dude, I was the only one. So I go out. I didn't know, but I was like, oh, dude, I haven't gone yet. And I'm sure like McAfee or Vinatieri was like, hey, Overton hasn't gone. Yeah. So I go out there, sing Santeria, do great. Like, they got a picture of me doing it. So it was like, it was cool doing that. That's
awesome, bro.
Yeah.
That is wild.
But the hazing thing, I think it's a dying thing. Like, I'm sure there's still knuckleheads that do it, but
I don't think that it's a completely bad thing. Cause like, there is something to it. Like, I always, back in high school when that happens, like, you feel like you're going to die, but then you don't.
Yeah.
You know,
You think it's the worst thing that could ever happen to you. But it's like, it's camaraderie.
yeah. There's
There's a line to be drawn.
There's a line.
Yeah.
But there is something about like, it's like the coming to age moment thing where it's like, because then eventually you're the person doing that to somebody else. And it's like, I went through this, you'll be all right.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. Football made me more of a man than a lot of things did when I was younger.
There's no question.
Because like, dude, I was in South Georgia, bro. Like, I was like the minority on my team, you know, and you had to like be ready, like you had to stay ready for some crap to pop off all the time, and like, you did. You just were like, okay, this is life now. Like, I got to be a man. I got to be able to protect myself. I got to be able to, you know. But it was really fun. Those boys were luckily.
No, football has shaped my life in so many ways, man. It's just like from the adversity as a young kid, like in 8 years old, having to forego your summer fun with your friends to go to practice and be in full pads and like do the conditioning drills. I mean, and nowadays, like it's tempered down quite a bit. But I remember like your punishment was running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After doing squats for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's
2 days in August.
Yeah, it's all it is running. It's like, hey, we're gonna run you until you're dog
Till
tired.
everybody throws up.
Exactly. And like obviously
Is
now,
that not a thing now?
Nah, I mean
Really?
it's more like, dude, like now in the state of Tennessee, like there's a heat index thing where like, you know, if the heat index is, I don't know, 100.
I was
like,
about to say, I feel like ours was like 102.
it might be 102, but they can't practice.
Yeah.
You know, like, dude, shoot.
I don't think we stopped.
No, we practice
did
at
it.
3 p.m. every single day in the dead heat of summer.
Yeah.
2 days, like pads all the time. Now it's
Yeah.
like, you know, you can only go a fully padded practice, and you have to follow that with non-contact, shirts and shorts kind of thing. Like the rules have changed so
That's
much.
crazy.
But I just remember as an 8-year-old being like, like you just run until you die, and then after that we're gonna hit each other as hard as we can.
Yeah,
because
some
you know
Oklahoma drill or something.
we got giant green wall drill. Like we're gonna see who can crack some skulls today.
Yeah.
You know? And like all that stuff, like it at the time, like hindsight, you're looking back like that's not very safe, but
It made you tough.
yeah, it made
Well, I
you,
think it-
yeah,
I
and
did-
it weeded out the people who weren't going to stick around long term anyway. Unfortunately, and it's like one of those things too. It's like I just remember, you know, and I had some horrible coaches growing up. Like they should not have been coaches because they're just not good people.
Right.
And I remember one of our receivers in practice, like he kept like dropping a certain route or something, or not running it, or whatever the case may be. So like the punishment for him was like machine gun drill. They put him, and then the whole team lined up, and every single person on the team got a shot like 5 yards apart. Boom, 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 and we did that like 2 times. The kid's crying. He's got snot bubbles coming out of his nose, and it's like, you know, at the time, like I was probably like loving it, like, oh, let's kill him.
Let me hit this kid.
Let's kill him. But looking back, it's like, dude, like that poor guy probably never wanted to play again
Yeah.
because that sucked,
I wouldn't.
you know. And it's like, why punish that guy in such a public, like physical way?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, I look back on football and it's like, dude, it's like I had some of the worst coaches, and not because like they didn't know football well, but they just didn't know how to like treat people well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like as a coach now, I'm very mindful of how I talk to my kids. You know, no cursing. You know, my demeanor, because dude, like the role of a coach is so important and vital to the longevity of that player or just their mental mind. You have no idea what's going on at home with those kids. This might be the only time that they interact with an adult, you know,
That treats
throughout the
them
day.
respectfully.
Yeah, you know, and so it's like you just have to have, every time I walk on that field, I try to remind myself of my role and my purpose there. Like, you know, I'm here to lift these kids up. I don't care about the result, you know, and so I just think back in the day, like these coaches were rugged. Like,
Dude,
yeah,
I
they
don't
just were
care,
like,
bro.
My youth league coach, he was a great guy. He still is a great guy. But like, they put it, he has sunflower seeds on one side of his mouth, dip on the other. And I guess I was probably like 11. So he ended up being my baseball coach one year too. And it was like word for word, dude. He'd be like, we're going to go out there and we're going to stomp a mud hole in their ass and we're going to walk it dry. And like, we're 11.
yeah,
It'd be like pull that tampon out of your ass. Let's go. Like, we're kids.
Oh, dude, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, I played for the Tracy Raiders, and we were like the best team. I haven't won any Super Bowls, but as a Pop Warner, I did. I got 2 rings as a Pop Warner player, right? And I just remember, again, we're 10, 11 years old. We're like in 7th and 8th grade, getting ready, or whatever it is, 12 years old, getting ready for high school. And we were the best team in the area. And I just remember like we would always play against like the Modesto or the Series Cowboys or something like that. And we had kids, they would write like Cowboy Killer on their arm, and we'd go, remember that old day when boom,
Yeah.
the whole team walks out, boom, boom,
Yeah.
Cowboy what Killer? Like we're like 10 years old, like screaming this stuff. Like it's just like looking back on the stuff that we did, like so naively, like we didn't care. It was like, dude, get the biggest stick mark on your helmet, like get those decals, for like they would give out decals every week, like who had the hit of the big hit of the game, like, and it didn't matter, like go take their head off, go decapitate your opponent.
Yep.
And I get it, like it's all like it just, but it has changed so much in 20, 30 years, like just the mentality, like,
And now all the targeting stuff.
yeah, well, you talk about like
Which
water,
I think
water
is-
breaks, like
Water breaks.
we would like your reward was a water break.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't ever come up to coach and say, "Hey, I need some water." No, don't ever.
Oh, sounds like you need some reps.
Yeah, boy. What is the Titan? Remember the Titans? Water makes you weak.
Yeah.
Water makes you fatigue. Like all this. Like, and now it's like, all right, guys, it's been 20 minutes. We got a 5-minute water break. All right, come back. You guys ready? Let's warm up again. Like it's
Water
changed.
breaks is just when everybody started throwing up.
yeah, 100%.
Dude,
Like,
it was so funny.
And you had to go drink out of the water trough or the hose.
Yeah, that's what we had.
White water coming
That's
out of
the
there
white
from all
thing.
the
Yeah, from all the whatever's in there.
the chemicals and minerals and the
that they freaking water the grass with.
literally.
Dude, I remember we were the Trojans, but during our summers, like we would always, and y'all probably did this too, but we would always either some people would run first, like the defense would run first while the offense was inside,
Yep.
or vice versa, or like in the gym. And dude, it was either like the big guys were coming out of the squat racks that just crushed this, like you would crush the squat rack and it would kill me. Yeah. But then I would watch people like you go outside and just throw up all morning.
Oh, yeah.
But then I'd be like, haha. And then I'd go inside and get under the squat rack, and we had a guy named Coach Shook, and he'd be like, Chambers, you're weak.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just like stay on my butt. He just didn't like me, but he would make me squat. Like we would squat for hours.
There is something about
It
that.
blew my mind. I was like, they really are gonna make me do this again.
Break you down.
Right. And I never really think about it that way. Like I was not the best athlete, and I was done with sports about 15. About 15, 16, I was completely checked out, and all I cared about was music. Like I would have pulled down any team I was on at that point because I was just
Good for
mentally
you,
not
man.
there
You bought
anymore.
into longevity.
But yeah, I was just like, I'm good here. I know my place and what I'm good at and what I'm not. But like, there is something to be said about being on a team. Like in your youth, especially when you're like 15, 12 to 15, of like what he's talking about, of like actually getting your ass kicked at like 12 to 15. Like it does make you better as a man. And like, I think something that I'd never think about till we just talked about is like pain tolerance. Mm-hmm. Like my pain tolerance is pretty high when it comes to like physically in pain. And it's got to be from like at 10 years old getting your first stinger and you can't breathe. And your coach is being like, you're fine. And you're like, I'm paralyzed. And like, you're not paralyzed. Or like, I remember whenever I broke my finger on freshman year, ran a pass, ball hit my hands, dropped the ball. Didn't even know my finger was broke till I walked back to the huddle, looked at my armband, and my pinky was like this, looking left. And I was like, Coach, I think there's something wrong here. And he's like, can't look at that, go to the trainer.
Yeah.
You know? And you're just walking over there and they're like cutting the glove off and they're like, yeah, your finger's broke. You got to go. Call your mom. And it's like, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. This shit's crazy, Mom. Look at this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now stuff happens and it's just like,
No,
I don't know, man.
All the youth sports is so if it's used right, it can really help just character build and handling adversity early on as a young kid when you don't even know what adversity is. And I mean, it goes back to the days like when we, like the first day in pads, you know, some kids, like I remember my best friend Jared, he never played football before, but we encouraged him, like, oh, you got to be on the team with us, man. He was like the short, little chubby kid, slow, unathletic, and he still did it. But I remember his dad's like, boy, go put those pads on. we went out to the front yard. They're doing like tackling drills in the front yard before going to practice. Like, this is how you hit. And his dad just
Smoking.
yeah, or like he would make one of us dress up, like, all right, like let's I need to get my boy ready. And then he fizzled out fast. But I just remember like, you know, like it's just so much the coddling mentality nowadays is like as a parent, and you guys will experience this one day, but it's like there is a fine line for sure. Like I want my girls to know what discipline is, know what hard work is. You know, they're my princesses, so like I will make sure that they're safe and taken care of all the time. But yeah, it's like the coddling era that we're in, where it's like whether you're a coach or parent, like there's something uniquely earned when you let these kids figure things out on their own.
I mean,
you know,
how to work well with others, how to be coachable.
Yeah.
And like maybe when we were younger, it was a little much, but like we probably need some more of that, like rub some dirt on it mentality.
I'd say it was a perfect amount.
We were fine.
Yeah, you had to earn your spot. You had to earn the respect.
Yeah.
You had to earn playing time. Like it wasn't like given, you know, and like now it's
had to perform. It was a meritocracy or whatever. Like it was merit based, you know?
Yeah. Don't ask me about those terms.
I mean, it's just merit. Like, I'm a redneck.
Did you show up? That word's right. Did you work hard? Did you earn your spot?
Yeah. Nowadays it's just like it's the college NIL thing. It's like
it's insane.
You know, these kids just chase the money. They're entitled and they feel like, you know, before they even step foot on a college campus, an SEC school, like they got money in their pocket. They should already get that starting spot. And it's just like a different era we're living in, man. And I think some of it's good, but I think it can be detrimental, like long term.
Yeah, I don't know. Just from an outside perspective, I think they should be able to pay them a little bit. I think they should be.
Only on their likeness, though.
I agree with that. I think
only on your likeness.
If you're not getting, if I'm using you for the cover of the game, you should get
exactly.
paid.
You're signing autographs.
If you're not doing nothing with me, and I'm just being a player,
like the kid that's going to Michigan, he got paid $11 million.
Yeah, that's ridiculous
to go to Michigan.
That's ridiculous.
Here's the thing, dude. Like, and here's why I don't like it, right? Because I agree that if you're going to make money off of my name and what I look like, I better be in some money.
Yeah,
because that's a little crazy. But beyond that, $11 million, right? Why does he need to go in there and like work as hard or show off enough compared to the dude 5 years ago to prove why he needs to be in that first round draft pick? Does it matter if he stacks his bread for 4 years over $11 million? Who cares if he signs or not?
Yeah.
Who cares? Maybe he still cares. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying 5 years ago it was I have to get drafted.
The chances of him working as hard are significantly
it just doesn't
decreased.
Matter. Yeah.
But even as the head coach of that team, he's also under the pressure. Like our boosters who pour a lot of money into this program just paid this kid $11 million to come commit to us. I am now at the stake of I have to start this kid.
Yep.
He can come in and be garbage and not fit well with our offense at all. He's not garbage. He's an elite athlete, but it also puts the pressure on the head coach. Like, all right, my job, I get paid primarily off these boosters. And these boosters have a lot of say on who gets fired, who gets hired.
Right.
And it runs deep. And so, like, I could feel like that's why Saban was fed up with it. Like, dude, I don't want to deal with.
You just can't. Well, it takes everything.
This is my team.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want, Mr.
No involvement.
Mr. Joe and Miss Sally, like, devoting all this money to a program for a kid they like.
Yeah.
Just to keep him away from Ohio State. I mean, like,
yeah, it's like, at what point? At some point, you're not the coach anymore.
No,
you're just a
puppet, man. You're a puppet. And then, yes,
they definitely just need to put.
They're going to start regulating it for sure. But again, it goes back to the entitlement mentality, and every parent thinks that their kid's the next, Patrick Mahomes.
Well, yeah,
at 8 years old,
you got You got kids out there acting like they make $1 million a year because they do.
Yeah, and we would be that kid if we lived. I mean,
You wouldn't know any different.
Dude, if you gave me $11 million at
a freshman in high school,
old,
and a TikTok and an Instagram,
brand deals, and a freshman in college,
I'd be dead.
I was in trouble with the minimum wage money I was making in freshman year in college.
I'd probably be dead.
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that $50 went to Coors Light and some cigarillos.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's just. Yeah.
It's so funny that we were here, and then you have like Johnny Manziel. That was just like, what a world it would have been if he could have played now.
Yeah.
And not been in trouble, and it was just normal.
Yeah, but he would have never been that. He would have never earned that
For
NIL money coming in. Being the Heisman Trophy winner, he would have made a lot of bread.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wonder how much he did make.
He made a lot under the table. I
There's
mean, he
a lot.
got punished for
Stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You should
I mean, not a lot compared to we're saying like, hey, he would secretly go to a hotel room and sign for like $10,000 or whatever like that. Like that's minuscule compared to like these millions and millions. I mean, I'm sure he made.
Have you seen the documentary on Netflix?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
If you watched it, dude, you got to watch it. It's insane.
But he's also got a lot of regrets, you know.
Yeah.
He seems very.
Can he like no longer play?
No,
For sure. Yeah.
he's done. Check that out.
I mean, I knew he wasn't playing, but I thought he tried, right?
He went.
Yeah, he tried, but I mean, he through his addiction and in and out of rehab, and
It just didn't work.
I mean, he's also a small guy. I mean, it's just his magic was on that field as an Aggie. I mean, it wasn't like anything wasn't really. I mean, there was a ton of dudes we could look at and say like, you know, look at Tim Tebow. I mean, he could have been in the league as a backup for several more years. But he's also a believer. He knows that his purpose wasn't the football field. Like he had bigger dreams and ambitions and purpose outside of it. But I mean, you look at so many guys through college, like their career was college.
Yeah.
You know, they're you know, the Heisman moments, like there was some of them understand that, some of them don't, but like a lot of these guys just never make it. You know, they win the most coveted award there is in football, and then you know, there's really nothing. Their glory day is at 19 years old, you know.
I actually really appreciate when there's an athlete who's a baller in college, gets their deal, goes to the NFL, they're not there for very long, they're like, this wasn't for me, but I'm going to go do something different. Not just disappear, not just like Roy McElroy. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool that he's an announcer.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that he calls games. Bama quarterback, goes to the NFL, didn't last forever, and he's like, I still love the sport, so I'll still be involved. I don't need to be on the field. I think that's pretty rad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's humility.
Yeah.
Well, and you're one of the lucky ones if you have that perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, you know, you could be, we talk about identity a lot. You know, if your identity is solely in music or solely in athletics and the jersey you wear, the team you're on, like, and if you have no purpose, if you can't see any purpose outside of that, and when that game comes to an end at a very young age for everybody, you just feel lost.
You lose your identity.
You think you've lost, you have no purpose outside of that. That's where drugs come into play, bankruptcy, divorce, depression, suicide.
It's like I talked about with you on my episode with you is like when your whole identity is wrapped up in one thing that can be easily taken away from you, dude, it's not good.
No.
Your identity can't be wrapped up in like an earthly thing.
Yeah.
Because it'll wreck you when it's gone.
Yeah. Well, you guys talked about that with Josh, like talking about, you know, the idol of the heart was the music thing.
Right.
You know, the deals, you know.
And it's hard not to be, right? Like,
no, I mean, there's a
you
balance.
get it. Like you've worked your whole life to still be able to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
I talk about it and I still struggle with it.
Me too.
Sure.
I've gone through it.
Yeah.
And I'm still struggling with it. Like I think that my vocal thing was like just the biggest, just like blessing in disguise to be like, to have that perspective. But it doesn't mean that I don't still struggle with that of being like, I still want it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like you still want the thing you work towards and you definitely don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
But can you be okay with the rest of your life if you don't have it? The answer is supposed to be yes, because like that's not really what God cares about.
Yeah.
It's not really what he put you here to do. It is your passion. Like he gave you the desire, the purpose, the passion. So it's something he built you to do, but it's not who you are. That's very hard to like.
It's confusing.
It's very confusing, especially
like
in jobs like ours where it's like, you know, I have a full-time job. If I didn't have a dream, then like I could just bounce around full-time jobs for the rest of my life and it wouldn't matter what I did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for people like us, You chose a very specific path. We chose a very specific path. So in our brains, we've got this preconditioned thing of like, I've spent literally my whole life chasing this thing down. So I can't do anything but that. And if I don't do that, who am I? Yeah. You know what's crazy is that like the only person at the end of the day that you're ever going to let down is you. No one else cares but you. Not that no one else is involved in your dreams or they don't want to see you succeed, but like they love you for who you are already. And they're not waking up every morning being like, man, I wonder where Matt's stats were this year.
Right.
They don't care like you care. Yeah. I wonder who's calling Matt to play on the next team. Yeah. No one's waking up and being like, let me go look at Tyler's streams tonight. Like, I wonder if Tyler streamed more yesterday than he streamed yesterday. I wonder if Tyler's talking to new record labels. No one cares because they already love you for who you are and they already think you're successful and you've already made it to them. You know what I mean? It's such a weird bubble that we live in when it's like.
Yeah, I think it's just like the thing that I've struggled with in my career is like, you know, I've been labeled as the football player for most of my life, essentially all my life. You know, I've been playing since 8 years old. I'm 39 now. And the greatest blessing that I received this year was a few things. So I reached out to Page High School to volunteer coach, kind of been on the fence about it for a while. And I did it, reached out, got plugged into the team, started working with the specialists, special teams. Like it was very rewarding, but it was also on my heart to, you know, still play. But again, being 39, being removed from the league for a year, like it's, you know, odds are stacked against. But I also know, like at my position, there's not many guys out there. Like if there's a need, like there's very few of us, like less than 5 guys. And so, you know, I always train. I love training regardless of my circumstance. And the biggest blessing, man, was like I got to volunteer coach, pour into these kids' lives, help make an impact. Also train. I get signed by Miami out of the blue. I go play for 3 games. And then I got to come back and finish the season with the kids and see them go through the playoffs and state championship and whatnot. But like in the midst of all that, it was like when I was in Miami, God revealed to me like, hey man, maybe you don't miss this as much as you thought you did.
Right.
And so it was really, there was a lot of peace on my mind and heart in that moment. Like I loved playing. I loved my time in Miami, but I also was like, man, I miss my girls. I miss being home. I miss my team that I'm helping with. I want to, you know, I don't want to miss out on, I'm already thinking about like, as soon as I get there, I don't know how long I'm going to be in Miami. So I'm thinking about, man, I'm going to miss out on Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I'm going to miss out on the playoffs. I'm going to miss out on being there for the kids, missing out on the girls stuff. And so it was like, man, football's great and all, but like, man, like I just didn't miss it as much as I thought I did. So it was almost like God took me there to kind of reveal that to me. And it's, you know, going back to like the whole dream thing, like, you know, God definitely puts a dream on your heart. And some of it's selfish ambition driven.
Right. Yeah.
And I think God, if you do put your trust in the Lord, God will kind of weed that stuff out. Or he'll open a door for you that you thought would be great and it sucks, or vice versa. But I think, you know, my encouragement for you guys is, as you continue to keep, you know, climbing and keep, you know, put music out and all that kind of stuff. I really do think there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. There's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve great things. You know, God wants that, but is it going to glorify him or not? And maybe God will reveal something like he revealed to me is like, you know, maybe you thought that song was going to be so good and it gets cut. And you're like, yeah, maybe that's not really what I was going for. Maybe I wasn't really, you know, I'm not getting that gratification from that song when you thought it was everything.
Right.
As opposed to something that you put on the shelf for a while. Or maybe it's not even songwriting. Maybe it's like doing the podcast. Like, you know, there was other things that when I got put back into the NFL locker room, like I felt that anxiety again that I don't miss. I felt the, you know, just the daily stress and routine. And it's like, those are the things that I hated while I was playing. And I don't miss that aspect of it. I love the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the games, the traveling, that kind of stuff. But, you know, when you have like your priorities kind of switched around and it's the music or football is not the sole, you know, thing that you're always like thinking of all the time and focusing on, like you you know, maybe God will reveal some other passion of yours that you thought, you know, you miss more than you would, or maybe, you know, like just, I hope God reveals, you know, because it's changed for me. It's ever evolving. It's like, you know, God has shown me so many different things. Like I get more joy of going onto a new team and being a disciple on a team and knowing that that's my role. Like, hey, football's great and all, but like the bigger purpose here is, you know, like let's be a disciple on this team. Like be a disciple in that writing room, you know, be a disciple wherever on the road, you know, and going back to the locker rooms, one of the darkest places there is, like be a beacon of light in that locker room.
Right.
And when you can find that, taking that stance over like, I need to be Matt the football player all the time, like that'll fade. Like
it's exhausting too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Like that's really interesting to hear you say that. And I think there's, I mean, obviously a lot of reasons, right? Like I think it's really cool that you can be in Miami playing a game in the NFL. That's what you always want to do, and be like, man, I wish I was home.
Coaching high school kids.
Yeah, it's a big shift. And like, I still want a lot of the same things that I've always wanted and dreams that I've chased. Something that freaked me out going through my vocal thing was when I started to get my voice back, and I was like at the beginning, it sucked when I was like, I can't do anything about this. I'm losing everything I worked for. I'm watching my numbers drop by the daily. Like, this sucks, whatever. And then somewhere in the middle, it was like, there was no pressure anymore. There was something about, because I physically can't do anything about it, I don't have to compete. I don't have to do anything now. There was like weight off of my shoulders to be like, who cares? Nobody, including me. But then it freaked me out because I was like, man, if I stay here in this thing, I'll never go back. Because it was the same way. Like some of those things that made me anxious, some of those things that weren't healthy, they weren't good. I was like, I don't have any of that now. Just kind of feel normal again. And now that I've kind of like eased my way back into writing or recording music, I'm kind of the same where I'm like, I know what parts of these things I really enjoy. I know what parts I really don't. I know what I'm cool with getting out of this and what I really don't care if I get or not. Which makes it a little easier to be like, it makes it easier to define success and know what I'm going after. And I don't need all this other stuff either. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just, that's interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like you're saying, I'm in Miami playing all while I'm missing being a dad and being a husband and coaching high school kids. And I get to come back to the high school setting. It's like, oh, how was Miami? Was it great? I'm like, dude, yeah, it was cool. But listen, Friday Night Lights is better. Like it really is.
Yeah.
And I try to tell these kids, and they don't know nothing better. You know, their dreams are college and
they want to
NFL,
go where you're going.
And it's like, listen, like boys, you are in the glory days now. Like I tell you what, like playing in college is great. Playing, you know, in the NFL is great too. But there's nothing that will ever replace or come close to Friday Night Lights with your best buds in your hometown when you are the best team in the state. Nothing will come close.
It's like if you think about when you first moved up here, and it's like you're just full of fire doing your thing and like playing songs with your buddies. You wanted something, but there was no pressure. It was just like, we're having a freaking blast and we're playing Midtown.
Yeah.
We're going to Whiskey Jam and there's so-and-so sitting here, and all of a sudden you end up at a really cool spot. And it's like,
it is funny though, when you do reflect on your journey, and like, people say it all the time. Like when you get to the mountaintop, it could be lonely. It could be like very empty. It doesn't matter how much success, how much whatever, you always reflect on the dog days of like, oh dude, remember when we got in that Sprinter van, we drove 23 hours to Arizona to make $500.
you're right.
And you know, we're eating you know, whatever on the road, and we were doing this on the road, and we were, you know, that funny thing happened to so-and-so, like, and I reflect on my football, like, dude, like going back to Friday Night Lights, like some of the best moments that I'll ever remember or have of football is on Friday night in Tracy, California, when no one cared who won or lost. Like you're with your best friends. And yeah, when you reach some sort of level of success, you always think about like, man, it would kind of be cool to go back to that 1-bedroom apartment when I was struggling, you know, because like, even though you're in the midst of like, oh, I just feel like a failure right now, I just think nothing's happening. Like there's also something very special in that moment to where like, I don't know, you you just woke up every single day with like a certain drive.
Yeah.
That over time, I think you lose.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's very interesting to reflect on the journey. And maybe just sitting around that campfire, strumming along, singing songs, or coming up with ideas, like those are the glory days.
They are.
You know, they really are.
They are.
You know?
Yeah.
And you don't have that perspective while you're in the moment, obviously.
No, you don't, because you want to get to where you inevitably end up doing what you just said, looking back and being like,
oh, I wish it was
this was
back
way
there.
more fun when it actually wasn't my job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is true.
Like when it didn't make you any money, all you wanted to do was make you money. Yeah. And then it's like, man, there's a lot of pressure.
I feel like,
Yeah.
man, that everything that both of y'all just said is so relatable. I think my biggest problem is, like, I think even in my relationship with Morgan, from the outside, from her perspective, it probably looks like I want to be a famous country music singer so bad. But really what it is like, I don't care about being famous or anything. I just want to provide doing something that I love.
Pay your bills, do anything you want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest weight I have on my shoulders every day when I wake up is like the providing, like the biblical aspect of being a man, providing for your family, leading it, and then also being blessed enough to be able to do that with something, by doing something that you love. That's the American dream.
I agree.
You
That's
know,
what's
making it to the NFL, getting a paycheck for it.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, having that consistency or reliability. But pub deals are a lot like contracts from what I can tell, because, you know, we have yearly options where they can drop you.
Yeah.
Like you sign a 4-year deal every single year. They can, you know, like, actually, we're just going to stop here.
Yeah.
And luckily I haven't encountered knock on wood.
You ever had the Grim Reaper call you yet?
Yeah, not yet. But
that's what we call the Grim Reaper. The person that comes in the locker room and grabs the guy to get cut. He's the Grim Reaper.
Is it like solely his duty, or is it just like a coach?
It's like a little intern, like you know, upper like front office guy, you know, young guy that comes in and he's got like a little notepad with like a roster and he's looking for guys. And like it happened to me in Miami, and it's I'm working out on Monday and I'm there for 3 games minimum. And then the way it works, so I filled in for their guy who got put on IR. So he was out a minimum of 4 weeks. So I thought in my mind, okay, I'm getting signed. I'm going to be here for at least 4 weeks. They put me on practice squad for 3 weeks so they can use me as a veteran player. They can put me on practice squad. I don't take up a roster spot, but they elevate me for the game every week. But they can only do that 3 times. So I had just played my 3rd game.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, brother. Yeah. Is that something your agent negotiates for you?
No, it's just standard.
Just standard?
This is how it's been constructed through CBA. And the you know, 3rd game, I'm expected to get elevated for the 4th game. So I'm in the gym Monday morning getting a workout. Guy comes down, gets me. You know, typically you're like, oh man, the Grim Reaper's getting me. And the guys are like, get out of here, Grim Reaper, get out of here. Like, because they know what's happened, dude. It's a revolving door, dude. Yeah. And but I'm expected to get brought up. So I'm walking with this guy up to see the GM to be told that, hey, we're going to elevate you now, because I have to sign a contract to do that. We're going to elevate you to the 53-man roster, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So I'm cool. So I sit down with the GM. First time I met him. We're going to have to release you today. And like, again, I'm cool. Like I get to go home. Like, but I wasn't expecting him to release me. So like, yeah, I could, that Grim Reaper call for me, like in Indy, I was doing my Bible study, get a text, hey, can you come in a little early, you know, bring your iPad, and GM wants, and it's never a good thing, you know? So it's like when you guys, you know, with the pub thing, it's just like you get that random call out of the blue and things could be going great. You know, or you think you're struggling and then you just stick along the whole 4 years. Like it's weird how things work out sometimes, you know,
it really is, man.
Yeah. But I think for you, like with the whole, like feeling the pressure of providing, I think it's just human nature with the men. Like, you know, we're called to be providers and protectors. And it's easy when you're on this solo mission by yourself because you have nobody else but a dog and yourself to take care of.
You kind of have nothing to lose, and that almost fuels you a little more. Like,
Sure, yeah.
It's weird. You would think that responsibility of like a family and that type of thing would make you like it does fire you, but in a different way than like being 22.
Yeah,
and you're
there's
like,
two.
I'm about to go get this.
Yeah.
Like nothing's stopping me.
Yeah.
It's double-sided.
Like being 29, I'm like, okay, well, I need to make sure I mind my. I take care of business, but I do it in a very different manner now.
Yeah.
It's not so much like cutthroat or like somebody's got to get the job. It's going to be me.
Right.
Yeah. But for the both of you, like transitioning into a new phase of life with bringing a woman into your life, like there could be a lot of pressure with that. Like for me, I was very hesitant about proposing. I was very hesitant about getting once I got proposed, it was like almost like, all right, it's game on. Like you have this goal together. Same with getting pregnant. Like you could ask me every day, like, hey man, when you want to have kids? Oh, I don't know, man. Whenever. I think, when the time's right, I'll know. And then when I found out we were pregnant, it's like that switch is like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Baby's coming.
Right.
Like that. But
what is that like? And I mean that in of like, I guess a work ethic way. Were there more cylinders firing at that point, or?
Well, I think when I got engaged, I was playing, I had steady income. I knew I was going to be on a team, and that kind of stuff. And so it was like, at the time, I think, maybe the girlfriend or the fiance or the wife doesn't fully understand kind of how we're working internally. Like, all right, like,
yeah,
yes, I want to provide, but this is kind of how I want to provide and how I need to provide.
Right.
And like our industry is so unstable, essentially, right? It's like you're on one team 1 year, not the next, and you're on a tour 1 year, you get like, it's so like volatile. Like it's just like you can't guarantee anything. Mm-hmm. You don't have a steady 9 to 5 that you've been for. Essentially everybody doesn't have a guarantee. Like
no one does anywhere.
Yeah. But I think when it comes the internal pressure that I think us men handle or face and deal with quite consistently is just like, all right, well, like just being able to communicate well with your significant other and being like, all right, well, like this may work out, this may not. And it's like, there is a lot of pressure. It's like, you're taking care of another individual, and you want to be able to give her everything that she wants and needs. And her parents want to know that she's well taken care of and protected and safe. But then there's like this balance where like, all right, well, there is some sacrifice on both ends here. Like I may need to be out training these days for these hours. I may be gone on the road for a while. These are things that I need to do in order to provide this for you. And sometimes they don't quite understand. And sometimes like selfishly, they want you to be home more than often. And I think that's all natural.
Yeah.
But I think like going in early on in your guys' relationships, like you have to set the standard, like put everything on the table, like whether it's finances, whether it's time that you need away, whether it's like, hey, I need to go right for these days. Like just being open, honest with that is critical. Because if you try to be, we by nature, we're pretty independent people, right? Like we're driven, like we like to go come and go as we please. And
yeah.
Buddy hit you up at 9 p.m. one night. Hey, buddy, we're right. And they're like, all right, cool, I'll be there. But like now you have somebody like, hey, honey, is it cool if I go right for a few? I know we were supposed to go to bed and watch Netflix for a little bit, but like I kind of need to do this. Like there's like it's just tough. And sometimes you got to say no.
Yeah.
And that's always been hard for me. Like, cause as a driven person, like if there's an opportunity out there, I want to go take advantage of it. I want to go meet with this person. But sometimes like, then when kids come into the mix, it's like you have to like, all right, my time to do anything is between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Outside of that, like that's for the family, that's for the wife, that's for the kids. Like, and it takes time to like really.
Are you pretty regimented in that aspect?
I
feel like
I am, but like I still wrestle with it. There's times where like, hey, like something's gonna happen. I have this thing coming up. Later in the evening, I know the girls are home and, is it okay if I leave you with the girls for a few hours? Like, and then the whole NFL thing, like it brings a lot of stress on my wife because I leave abruptly. Like I don't even get this,
right.
I pack a bag and I'll leave. I don't know if I'm coming back. So that's a lot on her, and God bless her because she's been incredibly supportive, but it's not easy on her. And I think we were talking about outsider's perspective, like, people don't quite understand the nature of what you guys do and what we do as athletes. Like, it's demanding on the family dynamic.
Oh yeah.
The off season is, you have off season, but you also have training and you want to do family trips and whatnot. But then in season, like, sometimes the family gets put on the back burner, and that's not intentional by any means, but your job demands a lot of time and energy and focus. Like I'm like a film junkie. So like when I come home, like I got to watch practice. Like I got to watch every rep. I got to watch every practice. I got to study the next opponent. I got to watch the opponent that we're playing in 3 weeks. Like I was like, I'm in that headspace, and it's like, you just got to learn, like try to leave work at work and be present at home and be present. Cause your wife has been waiting all day for you to be home. Your kids have been waiting all day for you to get home. And so you need to give that same energy that you give to practice to the family, and that could be really, really hard. But like, as believers, we don't do this as much as we want to, but it's like carving out that, even if it's 15 minutes of like, just catching up with your wife, dude, like, hey, how you doing? I don't do a great job of that, but cause in the hustle bustle kids, like the kids take over like our mindset. All right, we got to do this. We got to get them to school. We got to do this, dance. We got this. So we kind of get wrapped up in that chaotic cycle. And sometimes we forget to like take care of our marriage and pour into our marriage, whether it's like finding date night opportunities and stuff like that, find a sitter, find a place to go. But you learn over time. It's just, if you try to keep Christ at the center of your relationship and at the household, like, and take out that time to just like, hey, how you doing? Like, it's almost like you're strangers. Like, hey, what's up? How you doing? After you just like had 4 hours straight of the kids just running you through the ground. Like, it's just weird. It's like, sometimes you feel like that marriage there's a disconnect between you and your wife because you're like so consumed with the kids and they drive you crazy and you just want to get away. And it's like, but I can't just get away because now my wife needs me, and like, it's like this whole like phase of like life and marriage and parenting, like it comes and goes in different phases and chapters. But just checking in on one another and making sure that you have that quality time and intimate time together, like, is really important because, in the hustle and bustle of all things, whether you're on the road and, like you get on the road, you guys are probably exhausted, and your girl knows that, but she's also expecting you to be, like, let's go out together and like, so I don't know, man. I'm excited for you guys, to embark on the, next chapter.
I'm excited
of your relationships,
It's gonna be good.
But like the whole kid thing, like I think for me, it was like, we didn't really plan on like, we were like, hey, let's just try. And if it happens overnight or happens in a week or happens in a year, whatever, like, but when we got that, positive test back, there was that switch in me, like internally. We are designed, to have children. And so when it happened, it was just like something in me was like,
people say that a lot. That like,
time.
There's like some unaccessible part of your brain until you become a parent, that all of a sudden there's a part of your brain that's like, ding, turns on, like it's unlocked. You get this new thing inside of you that's never been there before.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
And then finding about having our second one, I was like, I feel bad because I wasn't as enthusiastic. And my wife, like she kind of was beating around the bush about it, but she, I didn't know she was feeling a certain way and wasn't feeling great. And she goes and takes a test without telling me. And then, I come home and our oldest was 1 at the time. And she put on like a big sister t-shirt on her and she's running around the house. Right. And I'm just so naive to the situation. Like, had no self-awareness of what's going on. And she's running around. And my wife is just like, wait for me to see that shirt on True.
Oh, man.
And I turn and I see it and I kind of like do a double take and I read it. I'm like, we're having a baby, huh? It wasn't as like exciting. And like the first time, like we have it on video, like, let's go. Right. I was fired up. And it took me a while to come around like, oh man, we're bringing another little human being into this household. But then when she got there, it was just like, let's go. And now we're talking about the third, and that brings anxiety, and that brings stress. And so it's all different phases, man. It's all a gift, and it's all a blessing. You just have to have that perspective of like just be in the moment.
Y'all feeling like 3's the magic number?
I don't know, but then you talk to people like, oh, I'm good with 2. Oh, no, 3's great because the 2 are older. The 2 will take care of the third. And then, once you get a third, you're going to want to have a 4th, because you don't want the third to be too far behind. And it's just like, dude, where do you cap it off at?
Yeah.
Because we have friends that have like 5, and then we have friends that don't have any kids, and we have friends that have 1 or 2, and everyone has a different take on it all. So there's no right formula.
This was a great episode.
Yeah, this was awesome.
This was fun, man. Like I said, it was great to be on the other side of
You crushed it.
not on the other side of the microphone, but like not being in the host seat.
Yeah, it's fun doing that sometimes.
And you guys do a great job, like collabing together, as far as like, you guys are obviously really close and best buds, but like, hearing some of the podcasts and some of the, like you guys flow really well together. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but like, it seems very natural.
Dude, you see it. We just come in here and turn on
and
the
that's
mic.
the way it should be. Yeah. Like, I think it's, what you guys have created is you guys are, keeping it faith-based, keeping it real, keeping it honest, keeping it just vulnerable. And I think the more people, even like, I've had random people up at Music Grove Ministry like, hey, I heard your podcast. Like, I've never shared my story before. It's pretty dark. I'd love to. I've never really opened up about it. Do you want to do a podcast? I'm like, well, it's pretty bold of you to want to share your first time like publicly on a podcast, but like, let's talk about it. Like,
people need it, dude.
Yeah, let's go grab lunch or coffee and talk about it first. And I mean, obviously, it's very humbling to have somebody random just come to you, hey, I would love to jump on your podcast, share my story. But like, if you keep the intent of keeping it that way, I think you're going to just get so many curious people, whether it's a family member or a friend who has been struggling with something for a long time and you would never know it. We had a sobriety, and we're talking about Josh Phillips, like his sobriety story is incredible. But my first podcast was about sobriety with one of my best buddies here in town. And dude, I had family members, like cousins, reach out to me. Hey, dude, like your cousin has been struggling with like alcoholism for years. And we just listened to the podcast, and like it was very encouraging for us to hear that story.
It's insane.
To go get some help.
Our biggest post, was the Josh sobriety thing. And like, dude, I don't know how many there's on there, 160, 70, 80,000 views on TikTok. And the comments are like, I'm struggling with this right now. Like, someone please pray for me. Or I'm 10 years sober today. Yeah. Or, tomorrow's my birthday. I'm going to get sober tomorrow. Like, it's just crazy, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, the ripple effect of it all, and it's like it takes someone, it takes guys like you to have this platform, but it also takes someone vulnerable like Josh to be like, hey man, like I know I'm this big tough dude, like everyone thinks I'm, this is what I once was, but now this is how I changed. And I think like within music in general, there's been a common theme with guys that seek sobriety, because the drinking and drugs thing is so common, like it's part of like the initiation into the music thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like as soon as you get on the bus with your boys, like, all right, let's crack one.
Yeah.
Before the show, we're doing our shots. After the show, let's get wild. Like that's just I've been on some of those tours where it's like, it's wild and crazy and fun, but it's like, you do that consistently.
It's not sustainable.
Not at all. And it's
dude.
And I know there's the pressure of like upkeeping this image, like you got to be the tough, like the Brantley Gilbert, man, I got to be this tough outlaw.
And he's sober.
Like you got to like, there's that persona that you feel like you have to put on all the single time. And for Josh to come on here, and even Brantley talking about his sobriety, like I think it's it's just a spark that is needed. And I think a ton of people, men and women alike in your industry, are they're asking questions like, how do I seek help? How do I get help? How do I seek treatment? And like, I can still perform and be great at this God-given ability without the influence of alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the lie we tell ourselves. Like, I can't feel comfortable on stage unless I have a drink.
For sure.
I can't socialize. I can't feel comfortable in these social settings without drinking, or I don't feel comfortable being the one without a drink in my hand. And that's a lie. You know? Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing, guys.
Well, same to you.
Thank you
GodDog.
for
GodDog.
yeah. Thank you for coming on, brother.
That's awesome, dude.
Heck yeah.
Still gotta. So I'm.
Oh, yeah, you duck hunting with us or what?
Oh yeah.
Are you supposed to go on that one too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Is
Jason.
that what you're going to bring up?
Yeah. So Jason invited me to that duck hunt with you guys. And dude, it's so cool. Like Jason's incredible.
I'm so pumped.
Jason is incredible, and I want to listen to that because you had him on here, right? Or you're going to release it.
January.
Yeah. So I want to listen to that one because Jason is we're so blessed to have someone like Jason, just kind of like minister to our group and as an elder.
Yeah.
But he's so I was talking to him about the podcast and his new media thing that he's got going on, and dude, he's so methodical on the selection and the grouping of the hunts. And he was talking about the one that we're going on, and it's like he already has like a logo made for it. I forget do you remember the name he has for it?
Pintails and Podcast or something like that.
Yeah. And then like all the so I think Michael James, Lizenby, and Mikey. So the 3 mics are going on one, and I think
That's gonna be so funny, bro.
But I think it's like that one's called like Saint Michael or something like that.
That's sick.
And dude, it's like, dude, he's so creative and like, but he's also like, I think I need to take a chapter out of his book on like how to do this podcast thing, because sometimes we feel like we got to put out as much content as possible, and there's some truth to that, right? You have to keep up with like just constantly overflowing your stuff out there. Like you got to keep the momentum going. But like on his end, he's only one a month.
Yeah.
But he's very methodical, and there's more of a production side on his thing with the video and the hunt and like capturing that moment in the podcast and stuff. But it's a bigger like project per se, but I like his intentionality on the guests.
Yeah, he's like a type A creative.
For sure.
He's very.
That's a great way to explain that.
Yeah.
Meticulous and
but
meticulous, whatever that word is.
I do hope to join in
Dude,
on my first duck hunt.
You've got to come.
You got to.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so much fun. That should be.
Jason will teach you how to make your bed.
And he'll teach you how to make your bed.
Dude, I feel like I have no.
I hope he hears this.
You guys have been on hunts. I've never been on one.
Dude, I'm not great. I'm not that experienced of a hunter.
Dude, I'm like I own guns and never shoot them kind of dude. Like
I told you on your episode that when I came, we need to go shoot. We need to go to Nashville Gun Club.
Dude, I need to go.
Let's just go.
Shoot my Mossberg.
We should
Shout out.
We should all go to Nashville Gun Club and bust some clays before we go shoot dogs.
I think that would be
just
great.
Get a little warm up.
Have you ever been out there?
No.
It's fun, man.
It's
It's legit.
You get a golf cart. You don't even have to have a golf cart. You can just drive your car around.
Last time I shot clays was back in Indy. Same thing.
It's
you go to each hole.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Super nice. But no, dude, you'll have so much fun. That duck hunting is so relaxed for the most part. Jason makes it maybe a little more like for real. But like it's not like, oh my God, there's a big deer coming in, don't move and like don't breathe and shh.
It sounds like you could party and have a good time while you duck hunt.
You can it's a very camaraderie.
Not to say we're a party, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no.
You can
be rowdy.
Yeah.
It's social.
Yeah, it's social. That's why I like, and I think that's probably why Jason loves turkey hunting and duck hunting so much, is because normally you can do that with somebody else. Like deer hunting, I really love deer hunting with other people, but it's not something that you naturally do with someone else.
You're not in the tree being like,
oh
yeah, dude, that's so funny, ha ha ha, and you're being loud and moving. It's like, oh shit, here comes the deer.
Yeah.
Whereas ducks, it's like
we can be talking like this, and then a wad of ducks come in. You're like, okay, let's get quiet.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be fun.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah. Well, heck yeah, appreciate it, brother.
God bless you guys.
Matt Overton, everybody.
GodDog.
GodDog.
GodDog.